are walking late at night down a peaceful neighborhood road, out of the corner of your eye, you spot him. His face is featureless, save for a pair of beady eyes and a wide, unnerving grin. Welcome to the Crafty Cryptid, a channel dedicated to the dark, the strange, and the mysterious. Thanks for tuning in to Spooky Week, 7 days of chilling content to get you in the mood for Halloween. If you enjoy this type of thing, make sure to subscribe and leave a thumbs up, or else the Grinning Man will find you. His name is Indrid Cold, commonly known as the Smiling Man or the Grinning Man. It is said that he still visits people to this day. No one quite knows who he is, though he is commonly associated with UFO activity and is sometimes believed to be an alien or a member of the secret alleged organization of Men in Black. There have been 3 reported sightings of Indrid Cold. The first dates back to October 16th of 1966, when 2 boys named Martin and Jimmy were traveling down 4th Street in New Jersey. They were walking down the empty street when they noticed a surreal-looking figure standing near a fence. As they walked closer, they saw that the figure was a tall, bald man wearing a reflective metal green suit. He stared directly at them with a huge grin, and when they became frightened and ran away, he chased them until they managed to elude him. At the time, it was noted that UFO sightings were also reported around the area where Indrid Cold was allegedly seen. This first sighting of the Grinning Man was featured in a 1970 book called Strange Creatures from Time and Space, written by UFO researcher John Keel. Keel quoted Martin in the book as saying, "Jimmy nudged me and said, 'Who's that guy standing behind you?' I looked around, and there he was, behind that fence, just standing there. He pivoted around and looked right at us, and then he grinned a big old grin." Keel goes on to say that the man was over 6 feet tall and was dressed in a, quote, sparkling green coverall costume that shimmered and seemed to reflect the streetlights. There was a wide black belt around his waist. He had a very dark complexion and, quote, little round eyes, real beady, set far apart. The boys could not remember seeing any hair, ears, or nose on this figure, nor did they notice his hands. That same evening, John Keel wrote that a strange UFO was being reported just a few kilometers away, at several sites throughout New Jersey. It was a brilliant white light darting through the sky and behind hills, and was reported in various locations by civilians and police officers alike. The second sighting of the Smiling Man was even more strange. About 3 weeks after the boys' report, a sewing machine salesman named Woodrow Wilson Derenberger was driving home from Marietta, Ohio, to Mineral Wells, West Virginia, on the night of November 2nd, 1966. He reported the following the next day to WTAP television in Ohio. Quote, "Last night, shortly after 7, I was coming from Marietta, Ohio, coming down Interstate 77, and just before I came to the intersection of Route 47, there was a car past me, overtaking me from behind. And following closely behind this car was this unidentified flying object. And as the car behind passed me, this object was following close behind it and swerved directly in front of my truck, turning crosswise. And when it turned crosswise, it slowed down. It started slowing not abruptly or too fast, but gave me plenty of time to step on my brakes and slow down with it. But it forced me to come to a complete stop. And as soon as I had stopped, there was a door opened in the side of this vehicle, and this man stepped out and came directly to me, came to the truck. He walked to the right-hand side of the truck, and he told me to roll down the window. He asked me to roll down the window on the right-hand side of my truck, and I done what he asked. And this man stood there, and he first asked me what I was called, and I knew he meant my name, and I told him my name. And then he asked me, he said, "Why are you frightened?" He said, "Don't be frightened. We wish you no harm." He said, "We mean you no harm. We wish you only happiness." And I told him my name, and when I told him my name, he said he was called Cold. That was the name that he was called by. According to Derenberger, they had a telepathic conversation, and after a few minutes, Cold returned to his vehicle and flew away. Derenberger described the vehicle as shiny, charcoal-colored, and in the shape of a kerosene lamp, tapered at both ends with a bulge in the middle. Derenberger also described the man as being close to 6 feet tall, with a darker complexion, though he considered it more tanned than dark. Given that Martin and Jimmy were children, someone who was 6 feet tall and obviously creeped them out could have felt like he was much taller to the children. As for how he was dressed, Derenberger also had a description for that seems similar to what the boys described. Quote, "He had a top coat on, and it was zippered down the front. The top 2 buttons, like my coat here, were opened, and this outfit was a shiny material. It was a glossy outfit, like it was metallic, I suppose you would call it, and his shirt was a little bit darker than his jacket, and below his coat, he had on trousers of the same kind of a cloth material, and I believe the trousers were just a shade lighter than his coat. I would say that it wasn't a uniform. It didn't have the cut of a uniform. It was more like you'd wear a suit to town." Unfortunately, Derenberger's account would soon be labeled as delusion when his obsession with Indrid Cold cost him his job and his wife. And according to John Keel, who visited him later, Derenberger was also paranoid and hiding behind drawn curtains, while insisting that Indrid Cold and his friends frequently visited him. Woody Derenberger died in March of 1990, 23 years after meeting Indrid Cold. The third sighting of the so-called Grinning Man occurred during the same time period in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. This terrifying event transpired at the rural home of the Lilly family. The Lillys were dealing with frightening poltergeist-like activity, as well as seeing peculiar lights in the skies above their home on a nightly basis. According to Mrs. Lilly, quote, "We've seen all kinds of strange things. Blue lights, green ones, red ones, things that change color. Some have been so low that we thought we could see diamond-shaped windows in them, and none of them make any noise at all." The incident involving the Grinning Man, however, did not happen to the entire family, but focused on the Lilly's daughter, Linda. The young lady confided in John Keel, who was at the scene chronicling the entire Mothman uproar during the same period, that she had woken up one night to see a hulking figure leering down at her while she was in bed. In Linda's own words, quote, "It was a man, a big man, very broad. I couldn't see his face very well, but I could see that he was grinning at me. He walked around the bed and stood right over me. I screamed again and hid under the covers. When I looked again, he was gone." Linda then ran into her mother's room, shrieking hysterically, "There is a man in my room, there is." She refused to sleep alone for months following the encounter. According to reports made by Woodrow Derenberger, Indrid cold came from a planet named Lanulos in the Ganymedes galaxy, and there were two other grinning men by the names of Demo Hassan and Carl Ardo. So, whether or not all three of these events were Indrid or his companions, this smiling man phenomenon plagued the states of New Jersey and West Virginia for years during the 1960s. At this time, UFOs were a very popular sight, and also, the Mothman creature had begun being spotted. Were the Grinning Men related to these other paranormal experiences? What do you think? Leave your opinions in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. To be notified when I post next, subscribe and ding the notification bell. I post multiple times a week. Leave a thumbs up and a comment for the YouTube algorithm. And if you ever see a man with no ears, no nose, and a wide grin, perhaps run the other direction. Thanks for watching, and come back soon, Cryptids.